Welcome to another episode of Premium Times Podcast, where we dive deep into the conversations that matter. I am your host, Esther Adaji. With me here today are
Bakare, Majeed,
George Kaduna.
We will be talking about the rift between Wike and Senator Ireti Kingibe. So now, let's look at the background of Senator Ireti and Nyesom Wike. Bakare, can you tell us a little bit about their background?
Oh, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I've always, been trying to come here, so finally it's great to be here. But for citizens, for people in Abuja and the country entirely, you know that in the last couple of maybe about 11 months now, you have a new sheriff in the FCT as the minister, former governor of Rivers State, and you also have, in equal measure, a new sheriff as the senator representing Abuja in the Senate. So, ordinarily, how would I put it? Let me just give you a small political background. We currently have what many would describe as cobweb as far as the politics of FCT is concerned. The senator is a member of the Labour Party. The minister is a member of the People's Democratic Party, who is serving under a government of the All Progressive Congress. So you can get it now that there's a serious triangle. So I think mostly it's clash of ego. And morally, politically, and legally, this clash is permitted and it should even be encouraged because the senator, she's not there to praise the minister. Her job is to represent the interests of the people who elected her and also the interests of her political party. Because as a politician, by 2027, of course, there's a possibility that our own candidate will also be in the race again. And as a matter of fact, she won the election in the FCT by a landslide. I'm talking about serious landslide. Our own candidate too, that's Peter Obi, also won the election by a landslide in the FCT. It even became a constitutional discussion as to the whole question around 25% of the FCT, where some persons made that argument that for you to become the president, you must make 25% of the entire vote cast. Trying to interpret section 299 of the 1999 Constitution. Of course, the Supreme Court has made a verdict, but the reality of it is that the Labour Party as a political party remains a very, very popular, political party as far as the FCT is concerned. So if the senator, for reasons best known to her, decide and say the minister is not doing well, now that is an opinion that has both political and legal standing, that because she is the only senator representing the entire FCT. And let me take your mind back, without putting us into too much jargons. The National Assembly is the legislative arm of the FCT. The National Assembly makes laws for the FCT because the FCT does not have a state assembly. So the National Assembly is a replica of that State House of Assembly. So there's a lot of stake for her. Now, for the minister too, there is a lot of stake for him too, as quote unquote the de facto governor of the FCT, who is serving the interests of the president. So what we are having now, it's not the kind of clashes that we can say, oh, it's not good, oh, it's bad. It's a clash that is standing on three legs, morally, legally, and politically. Thank you.
Kaduna, do you want to add? Okay. But I have a question. It's not here. Can't she carry out her legislative duties without the minister of the FCT coming in? Why does she need him to carry out her legislative duties as a senator representing the FCT?
And that is why I said that she doesn't. She doesn't need the minister to carry out her function. What are her functions? Number one, lawmaking. Number two, oversight. Number three, representatives. So and number four, which is as a member of the opposition, which is what? To be in opposition, to criticize, to condemn, to ask for things to be done, and to also offer alternative and say, our party could have done better. So she has every right to act within the realm at which she is acting. So she does not need, so it's not a question. So, and I've seen in some places within the media where words like, I'm not being carried along. She is not supposed to be carried along. She is supposed to demand. They are not a member of the same political party. So she is in the position whereby, I'll give you, for example, in some of the analysis that we've made, the minister has been hailed and by so many for some of the things that he has done in the last 11 months, particularly regarding infrastructural development. Roads, bridges, which is known for. But the question you must ask yourself, if you are a resident in the FCT, is that these developments, has it been all encompassing? Now, the FCT has 6 area councils. You have Gwagwalada, Abaji, Buhari, Kwali, Amak, and which one have I left out? Kuje, making 6 of them. Now, the kind of transformation that you have seen in the city center in the last couple, have you seen those kind of transformation in other places? And I can tell you, so if you are a senator, you are representing the people in Buhari who may not have good roads. As a matter of fact, Ireti Kingibe got about 67,000 votes from Buhari Area Council. So if she's saying that you're not spreading it across, she's within her rights. In Amak, she got, maybe give or take, over 100,000. And Amak, what you refer to as within the city, is a fraction of Amak. Amak, if you start from Orozo, Karishi, Jikwe, Karu, down to Nyanya, part of Amak. If you start from Dede down to Dede, then you move to Gwarimpa and the rest is part of Amak. Then you go to the other side, which is from University of Abuja to Sabon, Lugbe, Karamajiji, Lugbe, Itef, Ako, the whole entire stretch. So I've given you the 3 stretch of Amak. Is development across board. So she is within her rights to make such pronouncement and say, look, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. I don't agree with what you've done. In one of our analyses, we said the minister has actually decided to fund the current budget, which is the biggest ever in the history of the FCT, about 1.2 trillion. Out of it, 500 billion out of it is actually commercial bank loans. Some of the lawmakers in the House of Representatives raised this concern as regarding the fiscal sustainability of the FCT when you use this kind of loans to just develop part of it. So in terms of overall development, we've seen the roads, we've seen the bridges. Are we seeing water in some of the new places that are developing? FCT has 14 secondary healthcare, that's general hospital. In the last 20 years, not single one has been built along Airport Road. Millions of people are living along that axis. Schools, what kind of attentions have we paid to them? So there are a lot of questions. So if Ireti is speaking part of it, those questions are legitimate.
You're listening to Premium Times Metro Podcast. Stay glued and enjoy the conversation as it gets even more interesting.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Mr. Majeed. So for a while, we all agree that FCT has not seen the likes of Wike in a while. After the likes of El Rufai, we had Bala Mohammed, we had Bello Mohammed. So we would agree that Wike is a step up. But one thing that is glaring, there's a clear difference between the El Rufai tenure and Wike. Rufai is holistic, while Wike is not. Take for example, if you walk around Abuja, you realize that Abuja is dirty, it's smelling. You realize that people who are supposed to be cleaning the streets are really not doing it. So it feels like Wike is more or less about the construction of roads and things where he can be hailed for. So I think that's where the senator's concerns are really, really valid, because it should be a holistic approach to development. It's the FCT is the center of governance. So hospitals, water, and the like, social amenities. It should be a holistic thing rather than just roads, So I agree with her. I think the minister needs to actually speak to himself and come down his high horse and work together with the senator. I don't see any harm in that.
Okay. Do you think the senator has attempted to resolve this conflict either from her side or Wike's side?
The political history of the minister is always very, very confrontational. So I don't know what could have happened, behind closed doors regarding conversation. But like I maintain, I love this type of confrontational approach in opposition because we've had, and because of lack of ideological divisions, sometimes you just can't even differentiate whoever is standing there, everybody just laugh together. It's only during the election that they will start saying, oh, I'm this and that. So those kind of confrontation are necessary, are even needed, are part of our democracy. What should be most paramount is that in no way or guys should I be guard in expressing those views at committee level. I don't know if she's a member of the FCT committee, which ordinarily I feel she should be. In my own opinion, I would even have loved if she's the chairman of the FCT committee, knowing fully well that she's the one representing them. So in terms of that, at committee level, she should be able to ask some of these questions, grill the ministers, like line 1, line 2, line 3. I don't agree with it because the FCT, under the current administration, the FCT has gotten about 3 or 4 budgets, and I can tell you none of those budgets spent up to more than a week in the National Assembly before their passage. You are talking about 1.something trillion budgets. What was the level of public hearing? The minister came, of course, made the usual talk, and everybody just went up. So there must be a platform to adequately express those views. And whenever she goes on TV, now look, I'm not saying that on her side regarding this conversation, is that while she's within her right to be in opposition, to be confrontational, to oppose whatever, which I agree with totally. Now, the FCT minister too, on the basis, and I've constantly been saying it, that there's a legal side, there is a moral side, and there's a political side. So the FCT minister too is equally within his right to make certain pronouncements that are political, because it's not in his party's interest, which is the PDP. It's not in his employer's interest, which is the president, who is a member of the APC, for Ireti Kingibe to win election come 2027. That is political. So there are many folds to it. So, and if we do not bring, and the joy of democracy is when we have conversations, when we have debates, and those confrontations and debates should be within the binds and confines of what? Of agreed upon principle, which is our constitutions and our laws. So currently, as it stands now, I think I'm enjoying this.
Okay, so I'm going to move you guys back. Kaduna mentioned something. He said Abuja is smelling. Wike is just focusing on what he'll get hailed for. So do you agree with him? Now we're having issues of insecurities on the rise. One chance is on the rise. A lot of things are going wrong. Can you shed more light on that?
Yeah, city management for any big city, it's a very, very complex task. And sometimes, someone said recently, those who are cleaning the city are as important as doctors. And the argument is very simple. When you do not clean the city, when it becomes more dirty, you can have, outbreaks of diseases like cholera and the rest, and the doctors work more. So the two of them are as important. So, and it's the same way that if all I need on my own street is just a road that can get me out, that road is equally as important as which of the new superhighway that you've built. So in managing city, and some of us who have spent time on the budget, we know that, okay, there is a disconnect, and I must say it that the city center in the past couple of years, even when we had those quote and unquote those side ministers, you can see say, okay, this is city that has, but what has always been missing is city management. How do you manage traffic, which is a big deal? You go around Wuse Market to see traffic where there is nothing actually blowing flow of traffic. Why is there traffic there? Because you have taxis that can carry at maximum crazy level of Nigerian standard 6 passengers, where they are supposed to be carrying, let's say, 4 maximum. They're blocking the roads because they are area 1, area 2 along. You want to go. So you have that kind of system. So
and traffic lights.
Yes, and traffic lights. Some of the Chinese one that they brought recently, some of them have turned upside down.
Yes.
You have a street light in the middle of the night. Look, you must be really, really political to say Wike has not done some things. He has done. But what we are saying is that managing a city, it must be in a way is that how many housing units have we constructed for low income earners in the last past couple of years? And that is why you see that people keeps on moving externally. Anywhere you see land, you just because you know that there are no access to land. So but when you manage a city, when you manage the housing part, when you manage waste management, when you manage traffic lights, when you manage traffic, when you do all of these things, the city becomes better. And what we have not seen is that the city, in terms of the city, we still have a long way to go. So, but you know that even if we have a long way to, even if we've done everything, it's a political environment. Someone can sit here and say, my party could have done better.
Yes.
I could have done better. Oh, I'm not carried along at all. So it's a marriage of a lot of things. And I really like the fact that we are able to sit down and see in between the noise. And between the noise, you know that, okay, it's just, majority of it's politics.
So can you shed more light on the insecurity? And I like what you said about housing. I know we have a lot of abandoned houses within the FCT. Though I know we are already drifting from Wike and Ireti's rifts, but can you just touch that a little before we go back?
All right. You see, the inability to address mass housing. And I'm not an advocate for some of those people who say, oh, there's some abandoned buildings there, let us take it on. No, those are private. Look, if you really want to allow any society to thrive, you must allow private property. So if I built a house and I decide I'm not putting anybody to, that's my business. As long as we have good taxing system that can make sure that, okay, you get some taxes for those abandoned houses. But what I need, and in my own view, we may disagree, is that we should have the kind of low-cost housing that poor people who are sweepers and cleaners, who are cleaning the city, can be living inside, so that they will not have to transport themselves from Suleja, from Maraba, from Kefi, from Abaji. Low-cost housing that where you can use a small space of land. And we used to have that in the city before. You go to places in Gariki, you go to places in Wuse, you see some of those houses. But I can tell you today, no average workers in the federal civil service can't even afford. In the past, they used to live in some of those places, but for you to even some of them have sold those houses. Some who got it during the Obasanjo administration, some of them are still enjoying the benefit of that, and they know the value of what they have, because when you decide to sell, even if it's a room and parlor self-contained, this within we say you can get millions for it. So we need to roll out more of those. See, when you roll out more of low-income houses, then those who locked up those places because people can't afford it, they will know that, okay, there's a reason. Okay, if I'm asking for 4 million naira before, maybe let me take 1.5 million. So the inability to address it, and not just address it within the city center, put some around. You put some in Gwagwalada so that average workers who are in the University of Abuja at the customs and immigration can be living there. You put it across that way, then you address the problem. Then there will be less pressure on the transportation where people live closer to where they're actually working. So if you address, train system, mass, urban mass transit, when you address within that ecosystem, you reduce the pressure.
Okay, so Wike said he threatened Ireti that he will make sure he threatened to block her senatorial ambition in the year 2027. Is this statement politically correct? Like, does he have the right to actually say that?
It does. Politically, it does. Like I've said to you, he's a member of the PDP. So if we are at a point where we have a very, very complex and complicated political system, like I've earlier mentioned. So if under a normal circumstance, it should be positioning someone from the PDP to emerge as the next FCT senator. Probably his friend Philip Aduda, the last FCT senator. That's one option. Then the APC as a political party should be positioning themselves and say, we should be the next person to take the FCT. Now, Peter Obi and the Labour Party should be looking to consolidate and say, Ireti should continue or someone else within our party, so that as we are campaigning for the presidential candidates, we are campaigning for senatorial seat. Because when you use those existing structure, and the essence of Ireti being here now is to increase their margin of what they did in the FCT the last time. I say, okay, if we got 217,000 votes, maybe this time around we are hoping to get, let's say, 400,000 votes through mobilization, awareness campaign, and what have you like that. So if a member of an opposition political party threatens you and say, I will block you, whether he made that threat, he didn't, as a politician, you know that this person is not my friend. And if you are sincere to the mandate that you've been given, you should not even be friends with member of the, because what your party is telling Nigeria is that we can do better. So, but within fighting, and there are rooms for negotiation, for compromise, and for this. And there are also room for all-out confrontation and saying that this is a terrible party. I've never seen this type of party before in my life. So, Wike is legitimate within it. And you're going to see a lot of moves between now and 2016, particularly during local government election. And there's a difference. Mohammed Bello was not really that political during his time in the FCT. Now, you have a minister now who, in his home state of Rivers State, politically is struggling, is fighting on two fronts. Now, he has another newfound home that he's trying to keep. So, the minister will be looking at, okay, I want these people I'm working with, perhaps, say, okay, I want APC to win presidential election. One of the things I'm going to use to show the president is that, look, we are going to win the FCT. So what is he going to do? By the time they're having local government election, he's going to get structures in place and say, okay, let's just spread our structures as against. So he's going to, and I can assure you, you are going to see a lot of fight within the APC, because Wike is going to come and say, you must become the chairman.
He's not even an APC member.
And that is where the complication it is. So the reality about it is that he is going to decide the kind of persons who are going to emerge this as within the structure, and he will be expected to carry that structure to the general election, so that you know. And some of the things you've seen in his utterances, in his action, is that he is trying to, as much as possible, to please the president. And what way is he going to please the president? To assure and say, I am on ground there. And don't underestimate him. We saw it in Rivers in the last election, where the APC has never won an election. Boom, won an election. So if he makes that threat is legitimate. Now, I'll tell you the weakness of that threat. The weakness of that threat is that Ireti Kingibe can win FCT by winning Amak alone. The data says so. Now, APC is popular in, let's say, 3 local governments: Gwagwalada, Kwali, and Abaji. While the opposition is popular in Kuje, Buhari, and Amak, they have 2 things in common. One is popular in the rural area, one is popular in the urban center. Now, those who voted for Ireti the last time probably voted because of some form of rebellious type of voting against the ruling party, where they voted for Peter Obi. So as they were marking Peter Obi, they were marking, and you look, the voting pattern was consistent. For the presidential election, they got it. Senatorial district, they got it. Then for the one of the House of Representative seats, that's Abaji, and that's Buhari and Ahmad, they have a Labour Party person there. But in Abuja South, those 4 other local governments, APC won it. So if he has made that threat, that he has shown him your hands, he has shown you his hand. So the next question you'll be asking yourself is that, where is my own game plan? Your own game plan is in Amak, is in Buhari. Now, where someone like Wike becomes politically formidable is the ability to now build structures, because he is in this number. It's for him to now look and say, okay, who can get me those votes in Nyanya, in Karishi, in Orozo? Who can get me those votes in this place? How can we mobilize within the city center? So the threat is valid, but there are weaknesses within that strength. And to not do it is the ability of the current senator to not play to his own strength. How is she able to use her own zonal intervention projects too? Matters. Because the senator also has zonal intervention projects. Where are you putting the zonal intervention project? Are you spreading it enough? Are those things critical enough? You can do intervention in the education sector and show the way and say, look, this is what I've done in the education sector. This is what I've done in the healthcare sector. This is what I've done in terms of management of waste within the rural communities. So those people and let me now shock you the most of all these debates we are having. Who says Ireti Kingibe will not be in APC before 2027?
It's possible.
So politics. In the end, those tools that we're having conversation about could become friends, could become strength. Like, you guys are fighting together now. So it becomes at the end of it, just like Sam Kolawole in his book, it's all politics.
You're listening to Premium Times Metro Podcast. Stay glued and enjoy the conversation as it gets even more interesting.
Okay, with this confrontation, how do you see female senators thriving in Nigeria?
As far as confrontation is concerned, as long as you are not throwing fisticuffs, as far as you're not sending assassins to murder someone, I think we should be careful in not saying, female senator or male senator, because the danger of it is that we encourage stereotype, because some persons say, she may not have, the wherewithal to confront someone like this who has this kind of. Women in politics have exceptional capacity to go at it always. They will produce, politicians in this country who are extremely powerful female, politicians. So, in terms of gender, because if you look at the number that brought in Ireti in, by that mandate, she is powerful. What is most important is ability to touch base with that, to continue to be consistently touch base with that particular decision. And one of the concerns that some persons have raised is that, as a senator, did you reject the SUV that was given at the point, of our critical national lives? And the base where she came from the base of, let us fight the establishment. So Ireti must be able to ask herself some questions like, have I been doing those things that fired up the young people that said, we need you there? That's the question. If the president made some requests, have you been on the floor of the house? Not just to say, no, we don't agree. To be concise and say, okay, this is our position consistently. By now I would have expected some radical positioning, like say, okay, this is my pay slip, this is what I've gotten. And there is a need to reform whatever we are getting. What is your position when the National Assembly decided to increase the National Assembly budget to 344 billion from the previous 169 billion? So if she's able to consistently take some of these actions, the base will continue to say, okay, she's representing those systems. So in the end, you may be shocked, because there was a time in this country that Wike was like the voice of opposition when it was opposition. So a lot of things do change politically, and if you're not careful, there will be that nostalgic, and say, fatigue, voters fatigue, and say, after all, what did she do? So there's a possibility of that.
But in this context, let me ask you, because we've also seen the report where the Senate president talked her down. So with this context, how then do we say women in the Senate chambers are free to speak or free to move motions? Because if she is concerned about her constituents and she's being talked down by the president, how then is she supposed to, bring up issues and represent her people properly?
Thank you. And I think this is a very, very critical question. And I've always been the type that is always playing the oppositions. Look, majority will have their way, minority will have their say. And it's very, very critical on how you challenge the system. And you cannot challenge the system as an individual. What you need to do in opposition is to be able to build coalition of opposition. So if I have something to say, and I know the Senate president is not going to allow, but if you have a caucus meeting and you pass whatever everybody is saying and say, okay, Mr. Ma, we'll raise it today. If I'm not allowed to say this thing, I'm staging a walkout. We did a report on Tuesday where a rep member staged a walkout and said, look, I cannot be in as a first timer and you're discriminating against me. And it took that, and some of his colleagues were cheering because some of them could not stand up to say that for the fear of the establishment. Look, there are, and Ireti and some of the Labour Party senators have actually displayed some of this when it affected them directly. I remember at that time when there was a lot of discourse about who becomes the minority whips after Darlington Wakocha was sacked. And they raised their voices. They went to go and challenge the Senate president and say, this is not what we agreed on at the minority caucus level. So we may not give that excuse. Of course, opposition will always be giving that flair. They will not allow you to talk when you need to speak. But there are also rooms to consistently and continuously challenge the status quo. And challenging it may be you. Let's say, for instance, now, if Ireti decides to release a pay slip and say, this is what I'm getting every month, this is what I've done with it, you're putting every other senator too on the spot. If you decide and say, okay, this is going to be my position on the budget that you pass, and I need to discuss it on the floor of the House, and I was not accepted, and I give it to journalists and say, this is a written speech I've prepared on the budget, please publish it as I've written it. We're going to publish it. So the opposition will always have, but let me tell you, and I'm not saying this in regarding to Ireti or anybody in particular, there is a general feeling within this current National Assembly not to offend the establishment, to become friends with them. And we've seen it in some of the budget analysis we've done, where the carrot approach of using zonal intervention projects or budgeting to decide who gets what. And you can see during the whole budget padding scandal, a former minority leader went on a national TV and said, we don't know why that guy decided to go that route. I got 200 million for my constituency. So a lot of people have been, have been kept quiet through the use of such carrot approach to say, oh, if you complain too much, you may not get this. So oppositions must make that sacrifice that when we speak up, there will be consequences, but we understand the consequence. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add? Okay, so what are your final thoughts on, we are concluding now, on this Wike and Senator Ireti's saga. Final thoughts, please.
Don't release your leg from the neck. Press it. This is the moment. Don't fold. Just keep on pressing it until you get. I'm not saying she's going to win, but I just found out that because let me not use this word. I just found out that she's 70. She has gotten to the pinnacle of her career. If tomorrow, for any reason, she doesn't win the next election, but she's able to speak up, she's able to challenge the status quo, she's able to get some few things done, and there will be room for compromise. There will be room for, okay, you don't fight in so this way. Okay, we are going to address this, we are going to address this. You can take it beyond. If there are things that you know that are specific, things that you need done, write it. We in the media, I'm here for it. Give us. If they are saying anything that is wrong on all those closed doors, call us, we'll publish it. So there are ways to fight this battle. And the battle should not be about 2027 alone. Because as they say, politicians look at the next election. Statesmen, women, look at the future generation. And I think the future generation of the FCT rests on the shoulder of Ireti Kingibe as a senator representing the FCT. Her voice may not really change everything, but it's going to be recorded in history. So, and I think that's critical for her to know. Thank you so much.
I think the senator should keep speaking up. She has a duty to her people and must continue to do the work that she's been voted for. So she should keep speaking up, and the necessary parties should bring herself and Mr. Wike to the table, to settle issues. So I support Mr. Majeed, who has said put the leg on the neck and use the media as your tool. If you can't fight the powers that be, just use the media as your tool. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.